To understand if CAFCASS is against fathers, what you have to understand is the bigger picture. For many of us, CAFCASS is the first point of contact with the family courts, right? So officially, CAFCASS is independent. They are an independent organization. I think I have some papers because I was reading on the new developments, having to go through. So I'll read to you the official definition from the Ministry of Justice, so that at least we are on the same page on that, as far as CAFCASS is concerned. So CAFCASS, the Children and Family Court Advisory and Support Service, which provides independent advice to family courts, so it's supposed to be independent, in England about what is safe for children and in their best interests. So the role of CAFCASS Family Court Advisors is to safeguard and promote the welfare of the children, give advice to family courts, make provision for the children to be represented, right? And provide information, advice, and support to children and their families. And of course, in Wales, there is a corresponding organization. So for many of us, it's a shock when we first talk to CAFCASS, right? And it's very sad starting straight away because those of us who have had solicitors or barristers were not told about what CAFCASS is like when you deal with them, right? So you are not aware. You are not really made conscious of what's going to happen to you. Nobody tells you this. Most people don't tell you this. Most people involved. You may hear the official definition and you hear, oh, they're here for the welfare of the children. So now you think you are going to tell them the story of what happened, and surely once they realize the truth, they will side with you and help you see your kids, and perhaps try to put some sense in the mother who is alienating them from you by keeping them away from you, and who most likely is throwing accusations at you, or be blunt, making accusations or allegations of domestic abuse. Now, CAFCASS has guidelines within which they operate. And that's a point I have to touch on later on to help you understand the bigger picture and to see what's really going on. So when you speak to them, one thing you have to know is they are very limited in what they can do by law. And again, the new law reduces their powers even more, powers, so to speak, right? Their ability to help you. So even if they did want to be on your side, they can't, because their guidelines stop them from doing it. And where the guidelines would permit it, perhaps, their managers who have to answer to someone else higher up will change their report. And so the system itself is such that you are on the back foot before you even begin, right? So if you've not started your court proceedings yet, you will really have a big shock, especially when you are not aware of how it works. So what people don't understand about CAFCASS is that they have to follow certain rules and they have to follow the laws that are in place. And the laws are such that in the United Kingdom, that you, the father, and the mother don't have an inherent right to spend time with your children or to even have contact with your children. Now, it may seem that the mothers have that right. They don't either. In the United Kingdom, you don't have the right to see your kids, to write to your kids, to make a phone call to your kids, to make a video call to your kids, to take them to the park, to feed them, to give them a hug. You have no right as a parent in the United Kingdom when it comes to being involved in your child's life, right? So again, both mothers and fathers are in that position, just that the system is set up in such a way that mothers tend to have an advantage in family courts. And I'm not a lawyer. This is my view. This is my opinion. This is my experience, as the experience of many others. I do understand there are people who wish to dispute it. And so be it. I'm not qualified to give legal advice, so please be clear that everything I've said so far and everything I'm going to say henceforth is just my opinion. You could take it as entertainment, if you will, right? This is just views. Is a man who has a strong view and an experience and is sharing it with you. So please be aware of that. So now, the court systems are in favor of the mother. Now, you may argue that that's not true. And strictly speaking, if you read the paperwork, you read the laws, that you would be right. There is no legal presumption that the mother has more rights than the father as far as contact is concerned. The mother does have some rights that I don't want to go into, but she does have some rights that the father doesn't have. However, she doesn't have the right to spend time with a child, right? That is not a right in the United Kingdom. The child does have the right to have contact and to have their parents involved, right? So the child has that right, but the parent does not have that right. The parent has responsibilities towards the child. That's what we have. We have responsibilities, we don't have rights. And that's another shock that people get because they are not told this. Many are not told this until they enter the courtroom, right? And it's very sad that many barristers and solicitors don't inform their clients of this. So when CAFCASS comes to you, of course, they've been doing this for a while. The officer comes to you. He or she knows that you don't have those rights. And probably they may be tired of having said to 1,000 parents to argue. They may be tired of arguing with 1,000 parents that, look, you don't have the right to see your kid, right? And we all know how sensitive this is. It's very painful and sensitive. When I had my first conversation, I was taken aback. I was shocked. And I also want to make a distinction between CAFCASS officers that come to you and the organization as a whole, and the legal system as a whole. They are separate compartments, so to speak. You could say they are different layers. So the person who comes to your home or speaks to you on the phone, they don't have any power really. What they do is they report and they make a recommendation. So where their power lies is in what the recommendation says. But the recommendation has to go by the law. So because the law doesn't give you the right to see your child, they cannot necessarily make a recommendation stating, look, you have the right to see your child, therefore you should see your child. That's not going to happen. Because there's a caveat to this in the law. As it stands at this moment, is rapidly changing. And in some parts of the UK, it's already, the new laws are being piloted, they're being tried out. And we'll talk about that again as we speak today, but let me finish my point. So there's a caveat. There is a presumption that it is good for the child to be involved with you if there is no risk of harm, right? And you know you love your child, you know you will not harm your child. However, there is an allegation of domestic abuse that you did not expect. And in many cases, these allegations are false. In many cases, these allegations are just malicious. And in most cases that I have seen, they are thrown because that's a condition to get legal aid. When you have domestic abuse perpetrated against you and you've sought help for it, you will get legal aid. And by the way, this applies to fathers as well. You could get legal aid if you're in a tough financial position. And I know this from personal experience. And it's interesting that the person who told me about this, and I'll forever be grateful to this person, and I will not mention this person because this person had to tell me in secret about this, because other people around that same person, and I'm trying my best to protect their identity, lied, looked me straight in the eye and lied to me that I couldn't get legal aid. What they didn't know is that my application was already being processed, or it was about to be processed. But they lied to me, right? Outright lied to me that there was no legal aid. And it's interesting because I went on a solicitor firm as well. They said, yeah, there's no legal aid. They didn't say if you were in an abusive relationship and you're being abused, you could get legal aid, right? Of course, they do say it to the mothers. And because surprisingly, this is something that is not being shared, and I'm very suspicious that the new laws will try to forbid fathers or find a way to make it hard for fathers to get legal aid. Fathers don't know about this. So many have spent thousands of pounds, tens of thousands of pounds, in many cases hundreds of thousands of pounds, and still can't see their kids. And well, if you have hundreds of thousands of pounds, you can't get legal aid. But you know, if you're on the lower spectrum of income or net worth, you could. There are conditions attached. So please do seek independent legal advice and do look it up for yourself. But I digress. The point is, the mothers get legal aid when they accuse you of hurting them. Okay? So by law, because you hurt them, you're hurting the children. Your children, of course, too. And also, if the children witness the abuse, as it will be alleged, that means automatically you are also abusing the children. Again, seek independent legal advice on this. But that is the layman's way of putting it. So, because of these allegations, that makes it potentially unsafe for you to spend time with your kids, right? So CAFCASS does not have any power to say they don't think the allegations are true. They must be taken seriously by law. They must be, even though I've seen in practice that some judges ignore it when it goes the other way around, when it comes to the fathers. That's the reality of the times we live in. However, strictly speaking, CAFCASS must abide by that. And there was a leak. I'm saying that it was leaked guidance that was later changed. That when certain allegations were made, CAFCASS must make a recommendation to stop contact. That was, of course, changed. However, the new law, which has been worked on for years now, many years, at least 7-8 years, if not more, has been worked on. Will force CAFCASS to make the recommendation to stop contact, especially if there are allegations. So that, again, whether the CAFCASS officer is on your side or not, they don't have much power to do otherwise. Because once the allegations are made, they essentially have to be proven as true until the court finds otherwise. And that will take some time, as you know or you're about to experience. The new law, however, because there's no presumption of contact or the need for parent involvement, again, my words, what will happen is it will change everything, because now, let's say they say, you know, you're a bad guy, right? Let's say you've done some bad stuff to the mother. So the court could say, look, because we believe it's best for the child to at least have some contact with you, you're allowed to write a letter every week or every 2 weeks, right, to your child. Or if you're lucky enough, again, under those circumstances, you may get a phone call or a video call every now and then. And then as the proceedings progress, you may have the contact increase. Let's say you start supervised in a contact center and so forth. I know it's not pleasant, but those are the steps that might be taken. And then you build it up to whatever the court is so gracious to offer you and what you fight for. But now, because there is no presumption that you should be involved, the court does not have to say to you that, you know what, at least write that letter. So basically, your contact could completely be cut off based on the allegations. And it would be perfectly legal, right? I've not read the legislature thoroughly. I'm looking at all the papers. I'm looking at the pilot program here. the pilot program that is being put in place in certain parts of the United Kingdom as we speak. It's very sad that they see violence against women and girls as the only way domestic violence happens. Is now viewed as a gendered crime. That is not true, but that is the view of the government. That is the view of the judiciary. That is the view of CAFCASS. That is the view of everybody who essentially has the power to hold your children from you, believes it is mostly men who perpetrate these crimes based on statistics. Now, I know again from personal experience that the courts, the police, social workers, even CAFCASS will ignore when a woman is violent towards a man. I've seen it firsthand. So I know that it does happen. And I've heard many reports that it does happen, which is also discourages men from reporting it. Therefore, the statistics are skewed. It's true that we have stronger bodies in general as men. So when a woman hits us, we still feel the pain, of course. We know it's painful. Every man knows this. But because the impact is not the same, right? Even though the emotional harm is the same or often worse, that's not considered. Of course, if we're dealing with reality, there would be no need for this conversation, right? If the system was built on what is the truth, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So the reality is that CAFCASS has to operate within those constraints. Some of the officers believe those postulates, right? So they're essentially thinking that men are abusers and so on and so forth. Others who don't believe, which I think is a large proportion, they are risk averse, right? So it's safer to go with the path of least resistance. And as you're working towards your case, remember the path of least resistance is where things tend to flow. That's why you have to work very hard. It's very unfair, but you have to work 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times harder than your children's mother to create a path that is easier for the court and the professionals to follow. And that's unfortunate, but as a man, you do what you have to do. That's what it is, right? So CAFCASS did not design these laws. They are the messenger, they are the frontline soldiers, so to speak, for this system. They have to look out for the best interest of the child. And if there are allegations made, even if they look in your eye and they think, this guy wouldn't do this, they have to play it safe. And if they don't, their manager will be on their neck. So that is the reality of it. And then the small number, which I believe is perhaps the smaller number of the ones who realize what it is, they can't speak because they'll be silenced, right? If they say, I think women are just as violent as men are, that is probably an instant loss of a job, right? We know you're saying this in jobs outside of social work or judiciary will stop you, from having a job. So let alone a CAFCASS officer who says something like that. So they have no choice, in essence, than not to be for you. But what does being for you mean, right? Because they're supposed to be for the children. And you ask yourself, but why does it always happen that it ends up being in mother's favor? And one argument is, well, mothers are the ones who take care of the children on the day-to-day basis. I know, again, that that's not always true. I don't think that's a fair way to look at it. And also in cases where the mother is also abusive, I know, again, from personal experience, because I know a lot of people will hate me for what I've just said. I've had people who work within services that deal with situations where there might be domestic abuse. And in their training, I've heard people say they've been told that even if the mother is a perpetrator, you should still make sure the children go with her. That is that is the reality we live in. And again, that's why we are here. So what the truth here is that, you may find very unpleasant is that it doesn't matter if CAFCASS is for you or against you, or against fathers. They don't make the laws, and they have to go by what the laws are. Even if they want to help you, even if there's a CAFCASS officer who's like, you know what, I want you to see your children at least half the time, right? Once the allegations of domestic abuse come in, they have no power to do it. Even if they were on your side, if they realize, you know what, the mother is abusive, even if they realize the mother is abusive, it's still tricky to pin the abuse on her. And another thing people don't realize is when you get into a battle with your child's mother over your children, in most cases, she's been preparing for it for a long time, often before she met you, because you have to understand that there is a lot of effort to make women feel empowered by this. They think this is empowerment, right? Because you have power over somebody, you can destroy somebody's life. You have control over the children, therefore you're powerful, and so forth. So to a lot of people, this is empowerment. A lot of people see male authority and male confidence and masculinity as a threat. I'm sure you're aware of this. That's why you are with me here right now. So with such a mentality, there is even a CAFCASS officer who's on your side, there is very little they can do, because the management will say, whoa. Where are the children now? They are with the mother. Okay, and they're saying she beats the father and she slaps him. Yes, and you think it's true. How do you know this is true? Well, these are the allegations. Yeah, but nah. You know, again, I've not witnessed such a conversation. That's how I imagine it to be. So there is the only way to win, really, is to understand what's going on. I'm assuming you're not giving up on your children. That's why you are here. Even with the new laws, we are yet to see how it's going to go. I've spent most of today, looking through paperwork, finding as much, as many resources as I could, gathering the resources that I'll be studying over the next few weeks, probably months and maybe longer, to understand how it's going to work and to find the best way to help children and fathers, right? Because children love their fathers and children need their fathers. There are many stories of children who hadn't seen their fathers in years, sometimes till they grow up, and then they realize how much they miss their father. And even people who claim they don't care about their fathers, they do care. Everybody loves their parents. That's what children do. That's our nature as human beings, to love our parents, even though some parents are abusive. Both mothers and fathers can be abusive, right? And I don't believe in general, one has a higher tendency towards abuse than the other when they are mature human beings. I think mature human beings simply don't abuse people because it's not in their nature. It's part of maturity is understanding that you don't abuse people and you respect yourself, and by extension, you respect others. And that's a tough lesson for many people. And it's sad. It's really sad because this is going to have a very negative impact. And to be fair, even though this review, the final report of the review, does acknowledge that it's concerning that there's lack of clear, it says the lack of a clear evidence base about the long-term outcomes of different forms of involvement ordered by court was concerning. That's just about a sentence. That's just one sentence about the potential risks that I can see. Overall, you have to understand that as it stands, many judges believe, and when you read the case law, which, when you read the case law, you may notice that a single parent household is not seen as a negative. It's not seen as a bad thing. And the argument being made to the Ministry of Justice, which resulted in this, is that there isn't much when you factor in, everything. There is, let me just read it out. So where studies did control for relevant characteristics, such as family income, exposure to parental conflict, or the quality of the parent-child relationship, the difference in child welfare outcomes between children living in a shared care arrangement and those living in sole care arrangement disappeared. So in other words, whether there's a single parent household or the parents share the time with the children, it does not matter. I need a sip of my drink. I don't like orange juice, but I don't mind this. But I don't like orange juice. So you can see that all arguments about how fathers are important will fall on deaf ears when people try to fight with this change that is about to come, or has already started, to be fair. Because when you read practice directions 36Z, practice directions 36Z, there is already a pilot program, which I'm looking at the update here. This is from March, by the way. This is from March. I didn't even realize that now. This is from March. So this has been in the works, you know. I'm very disappointed that I didn't realize this earlier. I'm very disappointed I didn't realize this area. I still have to go through this. But this basically means this is being piloted in certain areas of the country. So in certain cities, I know in Birmingham, they are piloting this. In Bradford, in Leeds, there's some other areas where this is being piloted already, the new laws, where there's no presumption, that's my understanding, of parental involvement, right? So it's very sad. We are going to have to fight very hard. We are going to have to figure out new ways of being able to be fathers and be in touch with our children. So I want to talk a little bit about that, because you see, the mistake people make when CAFCASS comes to them is they don't understand how CAFCASS works. So I've explained some of it to you already, okay? But the other part of it is, as much as it's unfair, it's a reality, right? If you've ever been attacked by somebody violently, you know you cannot stop the attacker and say, wait a minute, it's not fair. You're trying to punch me in my face and I've not done anything to you. Or we just had a verbal argument. You don't need to punch me in my face. Please don't do that. And the attacker doesn't go and say, oh, you know what? You're right. I shouldn't be doing this. I'm very sorry. I'm not going to hurt you, right? Again, I'm not saying that's what CAFCASS is doing. My point is, when somebody has been appointed to do a job and accepted to do a job, that's what it is. So you have to deal with it as such, right? So you have to, the first thing you have to do is really learn to, forgive me for saying this, but you have to learn to show respect to a CAFCASS officer, even though what they say may be unfair to you. And remember, as I said in the beginning, they are going by the guidelines. I'm not saying it's fair. I'm not necessarily arguing that morally it's right, because I don't believe that's how things should be. But again, they are this way. So you fighting that person, shouting on them as some people do, getting angry, getting upset with them, forcing them to do something they can't even do, is not going to serve you. And again, I don't agree with what's going on. I'm here because I disagree with it, right? It's late, I want to sleep, but I can't sleep. I need to talk about this because it's happening. It's happening. So you have to realize that you have to show them respect, because that already makes you stand out from so many other fathers they speak to. Because most fathers have a negative reaction to them, and I understand why. However, the reality is that negative reaction will not help you. And it will stop you from hearing what they are saying to you, because you have to pay very close attention to what they are saying to you. As much as it may be unfair, you have to really understand that first hour that you speak to the CAFCASS officer in person is de facto your first hearing. Even though legally that's not what it is, that's actually your first hearing. If you're a magistrate's court, there is about 99% chance or 90% chance, made up statistic, most likely you will end up with an order that is based on the CAFCASS recommendation, period. When a judge or a member of the judiciary makes an order or a judgment, they have to explain why they deviated from what CAFCASS said if they chose to do so. The judge has to explain that. So if the judge doesn't agree with the CAFCASS recommendation, they must explain it. Remember, magistrates are lay people like you and I. They are not trained lawyers for the most part. They are just people, right? Who chose, they have some training, but they are not legal experts, so to speak. Some are more experienced than others, but they rely on their legal advisor and they rely on the CAFCASS officer to inform them. So whether you realize it or not, that's your first hearing. That's your first court hearing, because the outcome of that discussion is going to have influence on what the order is going to be. And I know at this point, many people drop out or have dropped out, 3 or 4 points ago, or maybe 2 points, or maybe at this point. But if you're still here, well done. That means you're willing to stay and really fight and help your kids and be there for your children, because they need you. They really do need you. They really, really need you. They do. Perhaps now in these times more than ever, because everywhere they turn, there's a message that makes their father looks bad one way or the other. So they need to look at you and get a confirmation that, look, no matter what the outside world says, I'm still your rock. I'm still your father, and I love you, and I'm here for you. And you can trust me, you can depend on me, right? You need to rise to the level where your children know instinctively that they can trust you and depend on you. It's very, very important. So if this is your first hearing, how you present yourself is going to be the way the court will view you for the most part. It's like the first impression, right? So if there are allegations against you that you're an abusive person, and then you start screaming, what is going to be the assumption? That the allegations might just be true, right? If you're disrespectful, as some people have been, if you are rude, that's going to give the impression that the allegations are true. And I understand how painful it can be and shocking. When I was not expecting any allegations. And mind you, I had a solicitor. They didn't give me any idea of what was to come. So when I was told about the domestic abuse I've perpetrated, I was like, what? I was just lucky because I started working on my preparation before my child was born, because I knew this was coming. I could see the sign. I was just lucky because at first I was in denial. But when I realized it, I was like, whoa. I must start educating myself right away. Even that did not prepare me. But it gave me some, cushioning for the emotional shock, because I had some expectation of a negative energy, albeit not that way, right? I didn't think I was just going to be accused of stuff right off the bat. And so the battle began. But I realized, and my instinct told me to stay calm. I did my best. I definitely did not blow up. It's not my nature to blow up as I used to when I was a kid. But it was still tough. So I can understand if you are like, well, it's not fair, I don't care, I don't. But it's the reality. Unless you're willing to throw everything away, you need to show them respect. And then that respect may just soften them up, because in my case, it did. Because there was some incidents that I cannot repeat, but the CAFCASS officer was actually actually understanding it. So you know what? When it comes to that, you are within your right. You're not wrong. Even though it could have been there was an attempt to tender against me, and I would argue, as sad as the recommendation was, the CAFCASS officer did the best to to be as balanced as possible within the constraints. But if I had reacted the way I was described, that I'll have been dead in the water. So that's the first thing. You have to learn, just respect the person, regardless. Remember, that officer might have spoken to 5, 10 people that day who are all rude and disrespectful. Don't think they enjoy hearing the allegations from the mothers either. It stresses everybody out, including the judges, right? It gets tiring because a lot of times you know there are false accusations, and there are many times there's a fact-finding hearing, and it comes out, yeah, this was not true. Of course, there are no repercussions. Nonetheless, it does come out often, not always, that the allegations were false. So that's the first thing. More important, well, not more importantly, besides that, everything you want to say, you should have your bullet points ready. If there are cross allegations of domestic abuse and you believe that you have cause for concern for your children, you need to write it down and be very factual about it. You cannot be like, oh, she's this, she's that. No, nothing. Anytime your statement starts with she is, that's no. Don't use that sentence when you're speaking to CAFCASS. You could say, look, last October or this summer, she came over. She wanted us to go out to a party. I didn't want to go. I wanted to stay home and sleep. I could say she could go on her own. She got angry and she threw, a glass at me, and the child started crying. Right? I just made this up, but let's say that's what happened. Then that's how you put it. State what happened, how it happened. Period. If there is something that certainly you did, especially when it can be proven, hold your hand up and accept it. Because otherwise, you just be delaying the inevitable. Right? Now, I understand certain situations can be misconstrued, and given the new laws, that will be difficult to do. I understand that. But what you definitely don't want to do is to try to prove your innocence to the CAFCASS officer. There's not enough time to do that. What they really want to know is to get the big picture of what's going on and give a broad brush strokes recommendation. Right? It's not going to be accurate. It's not going to be perfect. You're not going to like it. And as much as you may be surprised by this, your child's mother is not going to like it either. Right? Even if it's in her favor, she won't like it because that's what it is. Because parents who don't want the other to see the child usually are very spiteful, and they have an attitude of they want the other one to lose everything. And this law is going to cater to those needs perfectly from the appearances of it. Whew. So, be factual about what you say when you speak to CAFCASS, right? If they disagree, just say, this is what happened, and this is the best you can present that information. Don't argue with them. Don't try to convince them. Just state your side of the story. They will note it down, and then the judge will decide, right? The judge will decide. The calmer you stay, the more respectful you are. I'm not saying bow down or kiss their feet. Just have common decency and politeness that you would have, let's say, at work. Imagine you are in a work meeting and treated as such, as painful as it might be. After the CAFCASS officer is gone, you can cry, scream, hit the wall, break some bottles in the safe space where there's nobody else, all right? So I'm not advocating for any crazy thing. In your own space where there's nobody around you, do what you need to do to vent, right? By yourself, without harming any person. But don't do it in front of the CAFCASS officer. Of course, don't do it in front of your children, right? It's not something you should do. Nobody needs to see your anger. It's not going to help you. It's not going to help your children. The truth is, nobody cares about it. And as unfair as it may be, that's the reality. I take pride in being a man, and I think one of the good things of being a man is that we have a supreme capability of dealing with certain pressures. And unfortunately, people like to test it, and it's very painful and hard often. I know, I know, I know, I know, but you can do it. You can do it. You are the pillar of the society, right? We need fathers because we are the ones who, you know, we like to discipline our children. We like to keep a structure. Yes, we are more strict. We are also more fun, I think. We are more ready to roll on the floor. We don't worry about certain things, when it comes to spending time with our kids. And we do things differently from mothers, and that's it. Some things are better fitted for mothers, some are better fit for fathers. And I understand that this is a view that goes against everything, but what can I do, right? I have to say the truth because it's the truth that sets us free, and it's the truth that will help you. So value yourself as a father, understand that you are important, and for this reason, give respect to the CAFCASS officer and be factual about what you are saying. You may ask them questions. Again, if you don't understand something, they are not your lawyer, they're not your solicitor, they're not your barrister. Again, their job essentially will be to report and to make a recommendation, and that's where it starts, that's where it ends. So when they view you as somebody who really cares about the kids, because that's where you should be focused on the children, not on what the mother did, right? Of course, if it's domestic abuse, then it's relevant. But other than that, your relationship broke down, and you have to be willing to deal with the consequences of that, right? We chose the woman we chose to be the mothers of our children. One way or the other, we chose them. So now we have to deal with that. So when you speak to the CAFCASS officer and you have questions, they can't be legal questions, of course. That's for your solicitor. Just ask for clarifications. And the more you prepare what you want to say before you speak to them, so have some bullet points, the more you get out of that meeting. If there's, that's why you have to really prepare. And again, understand that this is your first hearing, de facto first hearing. So they will usually do their best to help you see your child. And again, the previous law was that there's a presumption of parental involvement, and they would act on that. They will do their best. Now the law is different, so and they will have to abide by it. I can see why many fathers would think there's no point of going to court because of these new developments. Like, what's the point? You're just not going to see your kids anyway, so I might as well not go. So that's to be fair, gives me hope, because a lot of these people in the system are greedy. They want to make money. So if the fathers are not going to court, there's no money to be made. If the applications to court are not being made, sure, they will get their single mother households as they want to, but the law firms are not going to make any money. And there's going to be less work all around. So again, that is maybe a sad way to look at it, but that is one thing that may change things. In the long run, they will have to concede that they need fathers, because even the court needs the fathers to exist, right? If all fathers said, you know what, okay, you don't need to see my kids, all right, I'm not going to see them, bye, then there's no courts. Right? We've seen a new development in places like Texas, where if a mother or a father who denies contact that has been ordered 3 times, they are going to jail, right? So you see a drop in those things. Where there is a presumption of 50-50, you see a drop in, divorces and similar proceedings. So let's not lose hope. Let's keep fighting. Sorry if that affected the sound. let's keep fighting. And as I keep reviewing these developments, I'm going to make more videos to help you navigate the system. So if you are in a place where this is not yet being piloted, then this is where what I'm saying applies even more to you. If it's being piloted, then you really need to pay attention, because it's going to be even harder than before to move forward. Now, what you also find is some CAFCASS officers actually will warm up to you over time. That's what I experienced, because I was trying to be as reasonable as possible. Over time, I understood that the more emotional I got, the harder it was for me to make my case, right? Because at the point in time, I decided to not work with my solicitor anymore and decided to represent myself. And so I realized that the CAFCASS officer was really more open to listening to me. Not just her. I was at the contact center, all the social workers, all the contact supervisors, in the beginning were very much against me because they had the allegations. But as time went on, they realized how much I love, my progeny, so to speak. And so they really, really started being on my side, or I would argue on the side of the child, when they realized they needed the father in their life because of what I was showing them. So things do improve if you change your attitude. And again, I know that it's not fair to you, but that's what you have to understand. So when the CAFCASS makes their report, you are able to challenge that report in court. It's very difficult. Again, I've seen situations where the judges are unfair, in my view. I've also seen very fair judges. I've seen judges, when you read the case law, who actually would agree with a lot of the things I say. They are not allowed to say it. It's considered inappropriate by the court. And sometimes they do say inappropriate things. They are humans. And you can challenge the report, right? You can say you don't agree with the recommendation. Obviously, it will take longer for you to see your kids. But you most likely get a chance to challenge that report in court. So then you need to be really prepared, and you need to really have a strong set of arguments as to why you disagree, and ideally evidence. If there are allegations, it's very likely that you end up in a fact-finding hearing, and at that point, there's nothing CAFCASS can do for you. And by the way, when you are calm and you lay back, very often CAFCASS will withdraw very quickly from the case. So they'll say, look, there's no further role for CAFCASS in this case, so you do well to be calm, because it helps. Because when they are out, then it's just the judge or the magistrate that you have to deal with. That, I think, simplifies things a lot. So again, your fact-finding hearing, you need to prepare for it. The same as the CAFCASS officer. You stay calm, you stay factual, you gather evidence. If you have not been gathering your evidence, start doing that now, right now. This, will be done in a little bit. Start getting your evidence together. Because the only advantage you have in court is when you're way more prepared than your opponent or your opponent's solicitors. That is the only way you win in court. You have to be way more prepared than they are. And again, for men, for fathers, a win is usually some kind of contact with the children. 50-50 is very rare. I think as it stands, about 3%, right? It's very difficult. And so you will have to have it, documents, papers. You create your own documents, your own papers that state what happened. So let me talk about that for a little while, because there's another thing that people miss, is that a lot of the fight, so to speak, happens on paper, right? So the CAFCASS report is going to be a document that will be sent to the court and be read by the judge or the magistrates and obviously all the involved parties. And then you have your position statements, your witness statement. A lot of work has to go into that because that is where you can get an edge, right? That's where you can get an edge. A lot of solicitors and a lot of people who get involved whip up a statement in a couple of hours, and they think it's okay. It's not, and they think you're just gonna have a verbal representation. No. That's not enough. You have to work a lot on your statements because that's one of the secrets to getting an advantage and in getting ahead. Again, everybody's case is different. The circumstances are always different, but what you write on paper can make the difference between you seeing your kids, every week, or maybe, every 2 weeks, as the case may be, or not seeing them at all, right? How you write your statements, because how you write your statements is how you prepare for the case, and that's also the first impression the judge may have of you before they see you at the hearing. So, if you don't know how to draft papers, you can get in touch with me, and what I can't promise you is that I'll give you at least an hour of my time to help you get going, right? That is a commitment I can make at this point, not forever, but at this point. And part of the reason is I got a lot of help in my case, a lot of help. I wasn't ashamed. Look, when I was walking the street, I'll go to a district or area or street where there's lots of law firms. I would literally go from door to door to door to door, asking for the free consultations. I don't know how many I got. Some of the solicitors were so kind. I remember there's one gentleman, I don't even know his name now. He literally, he was so nice. He spent time with me. He explained to me a lot about how the court works. He put so much effort. And, the secret person who also helped me a lot, that I really want to protect that person because of how unfair the system is, but really helped me so much. So I can make a commitment that if you get in touch, I will spend an hour with you on the phone and help you, with some of the preparation you need for court. Because your paperwork, your attitude, understanding what your angle is, what the narrative is, which is, I think, another thing that people don't understand. In court, yes, it's supposed to be about logic, but in essence, a lot of it is about the narrative. It's about the story that's being told. It's the story that's being told. I would argue 60% of the thing, but some of the story has already been pre-told, right? So the story that men are bad, women are the victims of those bad men, has already been told. That is, unfortunately, the starting point of the story. That's how the story starts. So for most fathers, it's actually about a redemption arc. Even if, at least on the surface, they seem to be the ones who are, more focused on the children's needs than the mother, because it does happen a lot. And again, I don't believe any parents who, out of spite, keeps a child away from the other parent, that person is mature. I don't think that person is a reasonable person. I don't think that person is fundamentally a good person. I think that person needs to work on themselves. And unfortunately, such people don't like to work on themselves. So you have to do the work on yourself. As I was told that, look, focus on your side of the street, keep your side of the street clean, right? So that will give you the clarity. When you start doing that, that will start giving you clarity, and you start realizing what is going on. You grieve the time that you miss with your children, because I miss a lot of time, and I had to grieve it, and I still grieve it sometimes. However, you need to grieve it also so that your children can also grieve it, because if you don't grieve, they will carry the grief, the pain of it. But when you grieve it and you let go of it, children are very attuned to their parents. They will feel it, and that gives them permission to let go as well, right? Don't try in any way, shape, or form to tell the children what's going on. I've seen fathers do that a lot, and that that just hurts the children. Not even the case itself; it does hurt the case a lot, but it also hurts the children. The children are caught in the crossfire. They don't need more bullets coming at them. It's almost finished. They don't need more bullets coming at them. So you have to show them love, show them care, and don't put them in the middle of the fight. Don't try to get them on your side. It's difficult. I know there is that temptation, especially when you are bad mouthed about the other parent, right? When the other parent tells them bad things about you, you may be tempted to defend yourself and say something the opposite. Sometimes all you need to do is to listen and to hear, because maybe they're just telling you what they heard. And they are looking at your reaction, not consciously necessarily. They're just watching for your reaction. And when you relax about it and you just hear them out and you really listen, because what they are really saying is, I'm hurt because I'm hearing all these bad things about you and I love you. I don't want to be hearing these things, but I'm hearing them and I'm being told these things. I don't know what to do with them. I feel I must do something because it hurts mommy, right? It's still their mother, right? They're still the children of their mother. And you cannot then say, yeah, but it also hurt that. No, don't do that, because as a father, you protect them from harm, and it harms them to be in this kind of conflict. And when you have this attitude and it's genuine, authentic, if you really are like that, don't pretend to be like that, because they'll smell it, they'll feel it, and your children will feel it too. But CAFCASS will notice. Believe me, they will. I'm not saying, I don't know who you are dealing with, but sooner or later they will notice. This kind of a case is a long-term case, right? Unfortunately, my case dragged for years. Well, it's a hard situation, you know. But you have to deal with it. And the reason why I decided to call my project Brave Father is because I think you are brave. You are facing a lot of negative things. I'm giving myself credit here too, because I this stuff I'm sharing is I've been debating it back and forth, not wanting to do it, because I know there's a lot of people who just hate you for being honest about the reality that you see, about seeing the truth that you see. But it's necessary, you know, and because CAFCASS is so crucial to your case, it's very important that you listen to good advice about how to deal with them. So that's why I'm here. And you are brave because you are willing to go in, hear the criticism, hear the lies, hear the negative things, and you still love your children. You probably have some horrible things that you could never imagine doing, right? And you're brave enough to go in. You look in the courtroom, and you know, I remember Chris Rock making a joke saying, "I'm the only one in this room who is paying, right? Everybody else in the room is getting paid. Everybody else is getting paid. Fair enough. In some cases, the mothers do pay, but very often they have legal aid, right? So you know, it's not about the money, but the point is, the reality is, in my belief, regardless of what anybody else says, what the system says, I'm about out of time. No matter what the system says, maybe you are the only one who truly loves your children on this planet, who truly cares about them. And it's unfortunate that it may take decades before your child realizes it. Nonetheless, we are men. We must be proud to be men, and we have certain strength. We have a certain strength, right? And this strength is what should be your foundation and guide you in protecting your children. So this is my first video for this project, Brave Fathers. I think at the time of the video, I've not yet put up the video. If you're watching it later, sorry, I've not put up the website. I've not created, I don't even know what's going to be on the website. If you are watching it later, then well, the website is probably up. So I encourage you to visit the site with whatever is on it. Again, this offer does not stand forever, but if you do need help or just need to talk to someone and what I'm saying resonates with you, I will give you an hour of my time. Just get in touch and on whichever platform you found this on, or through the website if it's ready or when it's ready. And I'll do my best to help you. I am with you. I feel your pain. I've gone through the same pain, and occasionally I still go through that pain. But I know there is victory in the end, right? I've not shared my full story yet, but I've gone through a lot. I've gone through a lot dealing with this. I've seen a lot. I've been lucky enough to help some fathers as well. And so I know that this advice works to get good results. And so, yeah, I want to make a better place for my children, for your children, for myself, for us. I'm proud to be a man. I'm proud of you. Thank you for watching. And I'll end this video here. And yeah, I'm looking forward to more conversations with you. Thank you. This is John Paul from bravefathers.com. Thank you.